We have made it. We actually have football this week. It has been a long road. Give me some. Give me some. All right, so we got to talk about... Trying to hold my hand? We got to talk about rankings. Let's start with QBs. We're going to go through and do all the positional rankings this week. We are going to start with quarterbacks and give the matchups that these guys are going to be facing and then rank them and how we'd be starting them. Now, please keep in mind, this entire season when we do rankings, they are not going to finish how we predict, because if they did every week, we'd not be doing this. We'd be doing something else where we made a lot more money.
Especially not week one.
And especially not week one, when there are only some predictable things that happen, some really predictable things that happen that they don't acknowledge. But here we go. In the S tier, Patrick Mahomes playing the Detroit Lions. You don't really need an explanation for why Patrick Mahomes is in the S tier. Jalen Hurts playing the New England Patriots. Look, the Patriots defense will be tough. However, you mean Jalen Hurts, you're talking about a guy who was one of the best players in the entire league last year, so we don't expect him to take a hit there. And Josh Allen is playing the Jets defense, so you do have to keep that in mind. Clearly, they're going to have Sauce Gardner on Stephon Diggs. That will make a difference. However, they have added some weapons, so with Sauce on Stephon, it opens up weapons like Dalton Kincaid to have a really good week. So we expect Allen to do his thing, and you got the A tier.
So the A tier, we're going to have Lamar Jackson at the top of this tier playing the Houston defense. And yeah, DeMeco Ryans is a defensive mind coming from San Francisco. He's awesome. But I mean, week one off the bat in a depleted defense where they brought on Will Anderson, but really outside of that, they got a lot of pieces that they got to build around there in Houston. And Lamar is back fully healthy with his rushing upside. Got to be excited about him going into week one. Then Justin Herbert looking to start the season off strong against the Miami Dolphins. And this will be a matchup that we're really excited to see for really on both sides of the ball, but we do expect Herbert to be slinging it. And in a new offense where Kellen Moore is actually going to, let Herbert take shots downfield since he has a top 3 arm in the NFL. I think we're going to see some fantasy points there with Justin Herbert, some very high upside. Joe Burrow playing Cleveland, and yeah, Cleveland has a really good defensive line. They might be putting some pressure on Burrow, but I think you can't be concerned with him playing with T. Higgins and with Jamar Chase and getting some help on the ground from Joe Mixon. But I think the only thing you can really be concerned with Burrow and why he's behind Herbert and Lamar is that he's injured, and he may be a little banged up still going into week one. If he starts at all, that still is kind of a question. Trevor Lawrence up next playing the Colts. I mean, you can put him at the top of this tier.
You can put him at the top of this entire list.
The Jags have our number for forever. Now, is this at Indy or is it at Jacksonville?
Pretty sure. I don't know. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
It does make a difference.
He looked, but when Trevor Lawrence sucked, he looked amazing against the Colts every time. So.
Yeah, okay, fair. Justin Fields going to be playing Green Bay at the tail end of this tier. Obviously, Justin Fields' passing volume is in question, which is why he's at the end here. But his rushing upside and the fact that Joe Barry is coaching Green Bay's defense means that he's probably going to have some pretty high upside.
Yeah, I'm glad we included that.
Yep.
Speaking of, well, never mind. I shouldn't say that. Deshaun Watson is next. We have him playing against Cincinnati, and with a full offseason here, he's finally gotten to work with the team, work with his receivers. He has Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore added in there this year too. Expect to see big things from Deshaun. I'm really excited. Hope we see the old 2019 version of Deshaun Watson
Pre-massage Deshaun, yeah. I'm hoping so.
Yep. Yeah. After him, we have maybe unpopularly, we have Geno Smith. Geno, obviously, he's going against the LA Rams, but this is not the LA Rams defense that we saw back in 2021. This is one of the worst defenses in the league. You pair that with DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, maybe JSN. We'll see what happens with Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. I think Geno's in a great place to succeed, especially with his weapons there. You could see him, have a really solid game. Daniel Jones against Dallas. Dallas has a good defense, but Daniel Jones has the rushing upside. We've seen that, and he has honestly, it's not saying much, but he has the best wide receiver core of his entire career. We'll see another year there with that. With that coaching staff that revitalized Daniel Jones last year. Behind him, we have Tua against the Chargers, and like Nathan already said, we could see a really high-scoring game there. We know what Tua's weapons can do. They have some elite deep threats, some great after-the-catch abilities. So Tua really every week has an incredible ceiling. I mean, last year what he did against Baltimore, and he can do that any given week.
Yeah, honestly, the reason he's not in the A tier is just because JT could end up being on Miami starting week one. So.
Yeah, and we're recording this before the the JT trade that will definitely happen in the future that I'm calling right now from the past because
You're taking it back.
Yep. Yeah.
All right, cool.
All right. So obviously because JT is on the Dolphins, Tua is going to be here on this list. So we'll see if that one pans out. But
Oof.
And last year we have Dak Prescott. You know, Trey Lance's backup. We have him.
where's Trey Lance on this list?
He's playing against the Giants.
Back to back.
Who's
with
going to
Dak.
score more points, Dalton Kincaid or Trey Lance?
They're going to split halves.
Yeah, right. That's crazy. But
change
Dak
the
Prescott's
pace,
going to do
quarterback.
what Dak Prescott does. I mean, he's been doing it for 5 or 6 years now. What the heck, guys? But yeah, we have Dak following up this tier at the end. You know, he still has CeeDee Lamb. He still has the ability that we've seen him do for really his entire career. So
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, look, you've been around long enough to know we are pretty low on Tony Pollard. And based on, the Mike McCarthy offensive splits in the last however many years he was actually calling an offense,
Decades.
Dak, has to have a good year for us to be right about that. So we're putting our cards there. Moving down to the C tier, we will start with Kirk Cousins, who is playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I know the Tampa Bay Buccaneers once were a defense to be feared. I would not say that is the case now.
No.
Kirk Cousins is going to be playing one of the worst teams in the league. Their defense is much better than our offense, but that's not saying anything at all. So Kirk Cousins, obviously with Justin Jefferson in his first game with Jordan Addison, is going to have some serious upside there. Aaron Rodgers is playing the Buffalo Bills. It will be really interesting to see what Aaron Rodgers does this year starting the year because obviously Aaron Rodgers struggled last year. He was banged up for a little bit of that. He was also playing with Alan Lazard as his best receiver for a lot of the time. So now he's going to New York. He has Garrett Wilson there. It will be interesting to see how those two mesh. What's up?
would you be surprised if by week 4 or 5, Rodgers is a weekly player in the A tier?
Yeah.
If we
Oh,
have him,
no, I wouldn't be shocked.
No,
yeah,
that
not at all.
would be him returning to form.
Wouldn't be
essentially.
shocked at all.
Absolutely.
So we're starting him here. We're being conservative, but this is a guy that definitely has room to jump up as the year goes on. So keep that in mind. Jared Goff is playing Kansas City's defense. Kansas City, middle of the road defense for sure, but Jared Goff kind of middle of the road quarterback, so he's going to be ranked right in the middle of the road, and that's where we're going to be comfortable putting him. That wasn't very good analysis. He has some upside. He's obviously got a lot of weapons, so he's got some upside. But we're
great
definitely-
offensive line too.
Yes. Russell Wilson, again, another guy that we just aren't sure about this year. And so we're going to stick to our rankings. We're going to stick very closely to our rankings in these first set. And we are going to put Russ here in the C tier. And look, I do think Russ has some serious fantasy upside, especially this year. So would I be surprised if Russell Wilson made his way consistently into the B tier this year? I would not be surprised about that. However, you look at Russell Wilson's offense right now, he's got a lot of guys banged up. And usually it's not good. I mean, his starting running back's coming off an ACL, so we'll see with Russell
His
Wilson.
starting wide receiver is out, Tim Patrick. So,
Right, I know. Yeah, they lost their best weapon in KJ Hamler, so
Yep.
we'll see how that goes for Russell Wilson. Anthony Richardson is playing the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's his first game. This is another wait and see. Anthony Richardson could finish in week
because
one
he's a rookie.
because he's a
Yeah.
rookie. I'm saying that because Anthony Richardson could finish anywhere from the A to the D tier on this list in week
Absolutely.
1. He has the upside of any of the guys on this list for the most part. Probably going to be limited with passing touchdowns, especially. However, if AR comes out and runs for 150 yards, maybe you're putting him in the A tier for sure.
It is home against Jacksonville though, so it'll be in Indy week 1.
So we'll only lose by
So that-
25.
Jags haven't won in Indy since 2014.
If we beat the
Well-
Jags week 1, I think I'm going to be
we'll be flying high,
celebrating.
and then we'll suck for the
crash
rest
and
of the
Not
year. Yeah.
happening.
yeah. Brock Purdy's playing the Steelers, and with Brock Purdy,
Wow, no one. Wow, who's surprised? He's the starter.
What?
who could have
Whoa.
have
No.
predicted this? You can't say that. You
Yes, he
can't.
can.
Okay.
Absolutely, I can. I said Brock Purdy was the starter way before you did. You crapped on me when I said Trey Lance had every opportunity. From an NFL perspective, Trey Lance was not going to be starting.
I was just kidding.
Brock Purdy.
No, you weren't kidding.
Yes, I was.
No, you weren't.
Because
All right.
it was a Trey Lance. Okay,
Continue.
whatever. So he's playing the Steelers, and Brock Purdy last year, when you look at his splits, when he was actually the starter, had some pretty good fantasy production. So it will be interesting to see where he finishes at this year as well. I think you have a lot of swing guys here in the C tier,
Yeah.
D tier.
Yes.
D tier is going to be Kenny Pickett at the top playing the Niners. And while that looks like a scary matchup up front at face value, you do have to take into account the fact that Nick Bosa, there have been whispers that Nick Bosa may hold out until week 2, until they have their first division game, just almost even to make a point. He's obviously holding out for that contract. And if you don't have Nick Bosa on your defensive line, that means probably a lot more time for Kenny Pickett to throw the ball. And honestly, if you're looking down the line, you could see Pickett even move up these rankings a bit too. We're excited to see what he can do in his second season in the NFL. Jordan Love, again, going to be conservative with this guy as well. Playing against Chicago, an absolutely abysmal defense. And last year they were dead last in defense, and it was not particularly close. I think they had a total of like 69 fantasy points on the year,
Nice.
which is not nice. And yeah, Jordan Love could there's a chance that he could ball out. I would anticipate that they lean on the run game primarily week 1 and kind of slowly phase Jordan Love into this new starting role. Jimmy Garoppolo, we know what Jimmy Garoppolo is. He's pretty safe. Chances are he'll probably finish higher than this.
And he's throwing to
but
Devontae Adams.
he doesn't have the ceiling that anyone...
Michael Mayer.
Yeah, right. He doesn't have the ceiling that anyone else has above him in these tiers. Derek Carr playing Tennessee. Derek Carr was terrible last year. He's a yellow quarterback, kind of like Jimmy G. We know what he is from a fantasy perspective. Very limited upside. I could see Jimmy G and Derek Carr both staying in this last tier for the entire season. Yeah. Matt Stafford, his upside is going to be way higher than this, but he has a lot of questions to answer, and he's got to answer them right off the bat. I'm not starting Matt Stafford week 1. I don't really know what his shoulder is going to look like. I don't know what his arm strength is going to be. I don't know how much they're going to still run the ball with Cam Akers.
Yeah. But he could absolutely be a weekly B tier quarterback.
For sure.
Yes.
Yep. He was QB5 just 2 years ago.
And he has a Cooper Cup.
Or 1 year removed.
Yep.
So, look, again, we're going to stick pretty close to our rankings because it's week 1. We have no idea what defenses are going to look like. We have no idea how these games are going to play out. So we're going to stick close to our rankings. As the season goes on, we'll get a better idea of how to rank these guys and what their seasons are going to look like. So they will probably become more accurate as the season goes on. But bear with us for now. That's kind of where we're putting these start sits for week 1. Do us a huge favor. If you aren't subscribed and you want like rankings and stuff during the fantasy season, and you like play fantasy during the season, you should subscribe. And you should also like the video if you can. And flockfantasy.com/domain is where all of our exclusive content will be found throughout the entire season. So if you want to have the best moves, the best waiver pickups, the best day-to-day fantasy advice, flockfantasy.com/domain. Use code domain for 30% off. We love to see you over there. Thanks for watching, guys. We will see you later.